Street racing is generally thought of as being a dangerous, often cinematic and destructive sport, held illegally on public roads, weaving in and out of traffic like absolute lunatics. However, there was a group of people that did things a little differently. This is the utterly crazy story of the Midnight Club. In the 1980s, Japan was the place to be. The economy was booming, which meant all these manufacturers were making all these fantastic machines. And Tokyo was the epicenter of a new movement called JDM, Japanese Domestic Market, because the Japanese manufacturers kept all the good vehicles in their home country. No exportation for you. And in 1985, a group of very, very wealthy, very skilled drivers formed a group called Miro Nato Korabu. I pronounced that wrong and I do apologize, but in translation terms, the Midnight Club. And the requirements were absolutely brutally strict. You need to be an incredible driver just to be considered. If you weren't in control of your vehicle at all times, at any given moment, you were kicked out. You must take a year-long apprenticeship in the club and attend every single meeting. In fact, only 10% of all applicants actually got accepted into the club's ranks. 10%! That's like an American college. Oh, and then there's the cars that you need themselves. The minimum top speed required was 160 miles an hour in 1985. So, how was this club run? Well, the meetings were disguised in the classified ads in the Tokyo newspaper, and they met up in parking lots in the middle of the night to discuss where to race. And the races always took place at the same location, the Tokyo Bayshore Highway, or the Wangang route. And why? Simple. It was empty, it was smooth, and it was a 4-lane blacktop all in themselves. The race was a rolling start at approximately 75 miles an hour. You raced for 15 minutes at a time, or until you couldn't see the leader's taillights. So if you outran him, you won. Now, these cars are traveling at a minimum of 160 miles an hour, and in the middle of a public freeway. You think the police will get pretty pissed off about that, and you're right. They couldn't do anything about it though, because Japanese law required all cars to be electronically limited to 110 miles per hour, and for some reason that included police cars. So when you have a bunch of highly modified racing vehicles blitzing past you at 160 miles an hour, you're not gonna catch them, no matter how good your sports car is. And these high speeds are very unusual for a street racing gang, which is normally accustomed to drifting and sliding around these corners in incredibly dangerous situations. And one anonymous club member was quoted saying this when asked a question about drifting. Drifting in autocross are for the weak. We only do maximum velocity. Now that is a badass. And speaking of badass, the cars were pretty goddamn epic. We had the standard issue Ferrari Testarossas, Lamborghini Countaches, but the coup de grace were the JDM cars that they used. Cars like the Nissan 300ZX, Nissan GTR R32s and R33s, Mazda RX-7s, Supras, and these are not stock cars, although they were very impressive stock. No, they were modified the hell out of them. Okay? They had anywhere from 400 to 600 plus horsepower. upgraded brakes, better suspension, bigger tires, roll cages, improved aerodynamics, weight reduction, and endurance racing fuel tanks in public street cars in 1985. And some of the cars were quite special, so we're just going to talk about a few of them here. But the two fastest Midnight Club cars. First, we had a little red Datsun 280SX. And this was a unique JDM car because it was actually naturally aspirated from a L30 ETT. And it made 630 horsepower, being a relatively aerodynamic sports car with even more aerodynamic work done to it, like a body kit, better front end for improved cutting through the air. It reached 212 miles an hour. 212! In a Datsun in the 90s. But it was a rival. You see, this was not the fastest car, no. It was the only car that could rival the king. The Porsche Yoshida Special 930. It started out as a pretty basic Porsche 911 930 generation. However, with a bit of time and $2 million invested into it, it was a monster. First, they improved the bodywork with special mirrors and even removing the windshield wipers to reduce drag. They also took that 3.6-liter flat six and turbocharged it with a turbocharger from none other than the McLaren MP4-4 F1 car. So what we have here is a Formula 1 turbocharger bolted on to a crazy fast, souped up, lightened, hardcore 911 with 700 horsepower that could do a top speed of 217 miles an hour for 15 minutes straight. Just for comparison, the Koenigsegg 1-1 runs out of fuel in 10 minutes at full chat. The Chiron runs out in 9. This 930 in the 90s could go for 15 plus minutes, flat out as fast as a McLaren P1. These cars are nuts, and they're doing this on public roads. However, like all good things, it came to an end. First, Tokyo began a rapid expansion in the 90s, and the freeway they were using was getting more and more crowded. And a group of Bozuku biker gangs, pushed a group of midnight racers who were in the middle of a race into a crowded roadway. They kind of forced them into that. And there was a horrific accident. 6 innocent civilians were wounded, 2 bikers were killed. And the club's ultimate rule, which is no innocent civilians shall be hurt, was broken. And with their ultimate rule, their ultimate pinnacle code of ethics shattered, the club immediately disbanded in 1999. Much to the welcome of their local authorities, I would imagine. So, what happened to the remnants of the club? Well, the vehicles have mainly stayed in private hands, so no one knows who those hands are, and a sort of cult-like following grew around them. Video games, movies, animes were all based off of this elusive club of gentlemen racers who may have been breaking the law exponentially, but they did it with class, they did it with care. They didn't want anyone hurt, they just wanted to see how fast they could go. And some of these club members, this is just a rumor, but some of them are believed to be the founders of the very tuning scene that Japan is known for. People like Top Secret, Reanima. They are rumored to be founding members of the Midnight Club and respected tuning companies. Which, putting two and together makes sense, and honestly, that just makes the club even more badass, because they had the fastest cars in all the land and all the world, beaten only by the rough CTR Yellowbird. And you know what? They don't brag about it. They're quiet. They're in the shadows. And although no one should ever publicly support street racing, you gotta admit, they had some class.